Hello, hello.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning. Good evening, Alex.
Yep, it's late here for me.
We got both sides of the world here today.
hmm Covering all of it.
Yeah. And apologies for the earlier delay. Had a little fun with LinkedIn events. There was a little bit of a technical hiccup, but we've moved it back 30 minutes. So appreciate those who can join. We are AI Expressed, an AI podcast where we go over all the latest AI news in an express format. Get back to what you were doing in the day afterwards. I'm Ed Kennedy, and with Run Diffusion, the podcast is sponsored by Run Diffusion, the best place to launch your creative AI apps and understand new AI workflows using popular platforms like Comfy UI, Automatic 1111, Oak, and many others. I'm joined by my good friend Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex, and I'm just a guy on LinkedIn who pretends to know what he's talking about when he talks about AI.
Alex, come on now. You got a little more going on for you than that. You've got AI Garden over there in Italy, right?
Yeah, I got something. I got something.
Do
Shall we
events.
start
Yeah.
talking about the news?
Yeah, let's jump into it. You want to kick things off?
Yeah, so today we found like a common theme for the first chunk of news because we noticed a trend that seems to be supposedly, or it could be where AI goes in 2024, especially because this is an idea prominent due to CES and is the idea that a lot of AIs are coming out from the LLM software stage and are slowly going into more hardware-based device. So they're being embodied. That's why we named this episode as the emergence of embodied AI, because it seems like a lot of big tech companies are thinking are diverging their focus from just building LLMs or building generative AI from actually putting in devices like cars, phones, and whatever you have.
Yeah, embodied AI has been a big trend. Last year, we saw the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. We've seen a few attempts at this space, but it hasn't really hit its pace yet. And I feel like with CES this year, there was a lot of product launches. I feel technology at a pretty place, starting to become more prevalent. Last like decade or so, the Internet of Things was always talked about, and I think that's the perfect sort of nest for AI to really take place. But of course, people have their concerns. Privacy is namely one of them. So it's going to be interesting to see how this type of technology develops as people get more comfortable using AI in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, my personal opinion on this is that I think embodying AI would really unlock AI for the mainstream because a lot of people are hesitant when approaching AI and they're very excited about the idea of having AI in physical devices or robots or anything you can touch and see and not just a software that runs in your phone. And so if this forecast comes true and 2024 is really the year of embodied AI, also I think it would be the year where AI really booms because, as I said, people seem to be very excited about the idea of having fully automated AI devices, whether if it's a car or it's a phone. When I talk about this to like people who are not deep in AI like we are, they get really excited, more excited than when you talk to them about ChatGPT.
Yeah, and speaking of ChatGPT, just a really important launch that happened for them last couple days. Of course, the GT store has launched. There's not really much information about how you'll be able to make money using this, but the store is available. They'll have been posting their apps on it, which is an exciting update. Also, ChatGPT did launch self-learning ChatGPT interactions. So in the conversation, it will actually learn. You can also set up a separate conversation, which it will get all that it's learned. So it's interesting to see how this has developed. Of course, Sam Altman now firmly back at the helm.
Yeah, like it's interesting to see how all the new releases are relentless. There's never been a month since last March where nothing like a slow month. I can't remember one slow month. Maybe you can add, but I can't. I can't remember one month where there wasn't a big hype for something that was just released.
I can't remember one either.
Yeah. When it comes to embodied AI, the news are so the first piece of news we wanted to talk about was the release of the Rabbit R1 device, which maybe a few of you saw on LinkedIn because it was basically everywhere. You probably had a hard time not seeing it. And it's this little device which looks like a smartphone, but it's not exactly a smartphone. That is a AI first device instead of being a smartphone where it's a software first device, I guess, where you just stop and do things. The R1 is a AI first device where you interact with it first of all through AI interaction, like speaking with it, or like by pointing it to objects, so it can do visual recognition of whatever you're pointing it at, instead of, and then like everything else comes second. So it's still capable of, for example, running apps or showing you a website, but that's supposed to be behind the AI interactions. And this device was announced at the CES, and the startup launching it is called it's called Rabbit, right? That's their
Startup
name, the
Rabbit.
company
Yeah.
itself. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
was just I was
it's an
yeah.
interesting device. I mean, the company that designed it, I'm very familiar with. They're called Teenage Engineering, and they make synthesizers. Classically, one called the OP1, which is like a very packed little tiny device with a really great interface. So they've been kind of known for making these like really great product designs. And what's funny is in this rabbit, like you see a little bit of that influence where there's actually like a scroll wheel on it, instead of a flat phone screen across the screen. It's like actually like a little scroll wheel. Kind of funny. And they've also done a
Yeah.
lot of collaborations with like IKEA and stuff, where they classically released a lot of. Generally, it's very high priced products, but they also have some very entry level products too. So they're just known for a certain pedigree, design, and see device and the screen.
So I have a question. So they were mainly an audio hardware company originally?
Yeah, so they started making synthesizers. They made a series of devices called pocket operators, which looked like old school tiny calculators. And they had a whole bunch of them that could do like drums or synth noises, program them to make songs. You could string them together. Very, very fun, very cheap. But then they also, on the other end of the spectrum, the OP1 is maybe like how big? It's like the size of a pencil case. But
Hmm.
it's a so it's a
Yeah.
couple $1,000s, I believe, or close to that.
Hmm.
And
It's interesting.
yeah,
It's interesting to see the jump of industry that they're doing from audio devices to AI devices.
yeah,
But in fact, like experts agree on the fact that this device looks nice and is promising. It has a lot of good ideas. The direction is probably where we are going with this device, but actually, the how is actually made, the execution of it leads to a lot of doubts and a lot of things that need to be proven true rather than just showed on a fancy Apple keynote like presentation.
yeah,
For example, we were discussing about the lam concept, which basically is like a large, instead of being a large language model driving the device, there's also something called large action model on top of the large language model, which is, instead of being trained on words like an LLM would be, is trained on UI interactions. This makes it able pretty much, it should be making it able to pretty much interact with any UI instead of you, so in your place, and perform full tasks and actions in your place, because it knows how to navigate, for example, Safari or Firefox or whatever app, Domino's Pizza, and that makes it interesting in sense of automation. And that lam concept is very interesting and very promising, but also, as Ed mentioned to me in private before, it also, we need to see if it's true and if it works. And this is like a common thread that drives this product. Everything looks very nice from the presentation, but there's a lot of things that are too cool and too good to be true, and they probably are, and
yeah.
probably are not, right?
Yeah. I mean, the one most promising thing is, a whole ton of people originally when it came out were very excited about the device on like Twitter, for example. And they were most excited about the price point, right? 199, very inexpensive, no subscription fee, get it for life. But then just this morning, actually, I noticed the sentiment had completely changed. People were really questioning the device. And namely, the reason why, because it's not a private local AI.
Hmm.
No AI on the device. It's all done via like an API, and it has Wi-Fi. So
Yeah.
that immediately put the damper on a lot of people's enthusiasm over device, because this is what is the difference between that and a phone then, if the AI isn't actually on the device itself, local and private.
Yes, because we still have to see small language models, which are actually now called SLMs, actually running on devices like this. There's been a lot of papers. Maybe the only one that I don't know if it's actually available already is the one on Google Pixels. I don't know if anyone already put their hands on the LLM interactions made possible by the smaller version of Gemini on Pixels. But in general, this application of small language models into a hardware device has yet have to be seen. We haven't seen it yet in the real world. There's been a lot of talk about it, a lot of announcements, a lot of interesting teasers, but nothing real. And this is another example of this, where people like these companies are saying we have these small language models and they're gonna do everything on your device, but actually it looks more difficult than it sounds.
It's getting there, though. It's getting very close. We've seen speed and performance and requirements for a lot of language models really dramatically reducing over the last year. Stability Force released a very tiny language model. So I think this will be the year that language models really will be small enough.
Yeah.
And
And
Rabbit's following a pedigree of many other hardware ones. I mean, last year we saw the Rewind pendant main
yeah.
AI pin. Which
Yeah.
you were saying that there was some changes at Humane.
Yeah, there's some news from yesterday that they are laying off 4% of their employees just before releasing the pin, which should be coming out in just a few months. And it's very controversial that they are starting laying off their staff just before what is their big first launch. But yeah, it's connected to this news because Humane is another company which has AI device that is a hardware device instead of being just an app, similar to what Rabbit is proposing. The Rabbit device is more hands-on, where Humane is voice first, I guess, but there are very similar ideas. But there's one thing I wanted to say about the R1, which is like all the ideas presented in the keynote. We could go and make a list, but I think it's better if people go and actually watch the keynote. Are all very promising, and it seems like the right direction. It's just the execution leaves to be desired. And I think what I wanted to say is that I think what Johnny Ive and Sam Altman are working on might be, hopefully and potentially, the hardware device that actually delivers in that sense. Because there are rumors about Johnny Ive, the designer of Apple, who designed the first iPhones, I think, and like the latest MacBooks and other very popular Apple devices. He is rumored to be collaborating with Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, in creating a hardware device similar to these ones. And I think if we have to put anywhere the hopes, and we want to put anywhere the hopes of a hardware device AI driven, maybe that's the one we should be waiting for. I mean, not to say that these devices are not promising, and I'm curious to see what they deliver. But if I had to like bet money, I would bet money on that one.
Well, we shall see, Alex.
Yeah.
You're willing to put your money on rumors, are you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about some of the other things at CES. Volkswagen is adding ChatGPT to its infotainment system. So they're adding ChatGPT through a partnership with a company called Cerence. And of course, this is signaling a shift how drivers may interact with their vehicles. We've seen since the launch of ChatGPT Voice, a lot of people have been talking to ChatGPT while they're driving places. I find it's really fun to do that. Just be driving, think of a question, and it's just merely a click on the phone to just talk to ChatGPT and have it talk back to you. So it's very non-intrusive way to interact with it. I do think that it will be very prevalent in cars. Speaking of car fun, just a little while ago, self-driving cars. This company over in India made an Android phone with all of its sensors, just a simple Android phone, drive a Suzuki down a street. So It's going to be interesting what happens with self-driving cars this year as well. There's been some great successes with Waymo. They've had very, very little accidents. Tesla maybe is like kind of backing away from self-driving. Really made it a little bit more difficult to get to the self-driving aspect, as they've been under a lot of scrutiny from regulators.
Yeah, in terms of ChatGPT in Volkswagen cars, the advertising is very. It looks very promising. You know, there's Ewan McGregor who does the guy who talks with the car, which is fun, I guess. But yeah, like as you're saying, not intrusive interaction with devices. That's something I really desire at this point. Like I really would like to talk to my phone and give him tasks hands off, and I'm really craving for this. And I hope if this is true, if this like forecasts are true, I hope that 2024 is the year where we actually start being able to stop touching devices that are like basically useless,
Yeah.
and we can actually start delivering tasks and seeing those tasks executed.
Yeah, living our Star Trek lives, right?
Yeah,
Very
hands
similar.
off.
Yeah. Let's move to creative news. There's a few interesting things that have been developing. Video, for example, launch of Stable Video Diffusion last year. That has been picking up a lot of space in the open source community. Are rapidly developing new things for that. And yesterday, Magic Video V2 launched. This is a high fidelity video generation from text, supposedly outperforming contenders in user evaluation. So it's outperforming Animate Diff and Stable Video Diffusion in the report. It does look like it's quite good. It's very, very smooth video because they're doing some interpolation, adding extra frames in there. But they claim that their product is better than Runway, better than Pika, better than Stable Video Diffusion. Remains to be seen how gets adopted, but at least by ByteDance, of course, the company that out TikTok, how that is adopted.
You have seen about this a little bit more than me. So, what do you think? How it compares with, for example, as you said, Stable Diffusion Video or Pika? Did you see any significant difference in the paper?
Yeah, so one thing is like the movement is very coherent, but it all kind of has this sort of like slow-mo kind of feel to it because of the interpolation, adding those extra frames for smoothness. So it does look smoother and cleaner, which is great, but it
Hmm.
also looks like something that you could maybe get if you took, say, a video from Runway or Pika or Stable Video Diffusion and did some extra processing on it, added some extra frames to it, etc. I do think, though, as a basis, like as a kind of foundation model, it looks very promising. So it'll just remain to be seen how the open source community adopts it and start using. That seems to be what makes a product successful, widespread adoption. If
Yeah.
the open source community starts building on top of what's already done, that foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next piece of creative news is that Alibaba just released the Replace Anything on Hugging Face. So Replace Anything is, I think, it's similar to Segment Anything, right, Ed?
Yeah, Meta released Segment Anything last year, which sort of would color certain areas of an image so that they could mask. This is sort of similar, except it kind of like involves in painting aspect of it or background
Uh-huh.
replacing.
Yeah, it's interesting to see like such a Chinese tech giant getting involved in the open source image generation business as well. Um,
Definitely going to be useful though for in painting. In painting, just so people are aware, is a notoriously difficult process that involves a lot of kind of trying and multiple generations until you kind of get what you want. Playing with settings
yeah,
for a very long time. So this will definitely help with that. As getting something that feels like it's part of the image is the primary goal of painting.
yeah, I did experiment a bit with Segment Anything, and it left a bit to be desired. And hopefully, this new technology is gonna improve that. Because yeah, as you said, that Segment Anything idea is very, very useful when it comes to in painting.
In a big shift for AI creative usage, one of the more interesting things that a company has a position, Valve did bend the knee anti-AI protesters and chunts, as you would say, Valve had rules that there would be no AI in any games. They did
Hmm.
actually block games from being published on the platform and felt that AI had been of the game. It was a very backwards look at policies for games, I thought,
Yeah,
because of course AI is so prevalent in ability to create assets for games. You need a ton of assets, you need backgrounds, you need characters, you need items, you need badges, you need so many things. And the technology in the game space is where AI is really adapting fastest. I was quite surprised by this, but they have rolled that back now. So they have new guidelines for the games, have to disclose any AI generated content and use it. However, if you have content that is generated by an AI in the game, you do have to show safety measures, which I think is a great way to do it. I think that new guidelines make a lot of sense because there is potential for, say, a game has a certain rating, but if it has an LLM in it, if it has a video or image thing in it, people might be able to, are not expected. Gamers being, of course, notorious for how they break games.
yeah.
I think this is a stance.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge U-turn by Valve, where like they had such a hard stance on it, and now they are completely changing the rules, which I guess is probably was a safe, approach. They were like, we don't know how to regulate, so we're just gonna block it for a while, and then when we figure out what rules we can put in place, then maybe we are gonna slowly open up to AI content. But certainly is a surprising change of direction.
I'm really grateful that they changed direction, but for those of who are not like directly exposed artists, so yeah, anti AI thing very very over. I remember yesterday it was something. There was multiple news articles, furious discussions all over the fact that company that makes magic cards used an AI generated background in advertisement. You know, it's just like it's absolutely ridiculous. So I don't blame companies for being cautious about the adoption of AI in that case when artists are so under the microscope. But I think that this sentiment is changing and fanatics are sort of fading in the background as AI becomes prevalent. So, yeah.
Yeah, but like my opinion on this, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say about this piece of news, is that like if you try to stop that, all you're gonna obtain is people using it in secret behind, like you don't know, and they're doing it. I think that's the only thing you're gonna obtain. So it's actually in their interest to allow in a regulated way to have some generated content in video games. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Lastly, Luma has Genie, lastly on the creative side. Anyway, sorry. Genie 1.0, it's step towards AI text to 3 model. Of course, was very prevalent with their Gaussian splatting technique, which technique for mapping outdoor spaces, 3D objects, and turning environments that could. So what happens with
Yep. So let's start with the boring part, with the business news. So a very this came out today on Reuters, so I think it's very 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 fresh news, which is that Microsoft finally overtook Apple as the world's most valuable company. I think this was inevitable due to how much Microsoft has been investing in AI and growing, and their growth is strictly tied up with how much AI is growing now, because they are behind so many AI products. It's just impossible to even start to count them. So, in my opinion, this was inevitable, but it's interesting to see how it's happening now. And I guess this was also driven by the fact that Apple is suffering from a number of little problems, like their Apple Watch was regulated and banned for a little bit, and other things like the fact that they are really struggling and they seem to be behind, at least seemingly, when it comes to adopting AI in their devices. So yeah, it's an interesting news, and I think we'll hear more about this in the news soon, because like I think Apple has the same evaluation as the GDP of France. So this means that Microsoft now has a bigger GDP than the entire country of France.
That's amazing. Of course, they've been battling back and forth now, so see them jockeying power like that.
Yeah.
Nvidia has some new announcements for CES. It will be launching a few new graphics cards On the business side, they did launch the RTX 5880, which is a scaled down RTX 6000 with classic GPU servers. This new RTX fits specifically for sanctioned clients. China, they of course were not allowed to export certain things now with the export regulation US, so they're releasing one specifically Chinese market. It is 48 gigs of GR6, and it has over 1,000 CUDA cores, so it's still a beast. I wish I had one on my desktop, but of course with these RTX cards, there's no fans, nothing like that, so they're very hard to run in a desktop and for servers.
Yeah, like right now, I'm really tempted in investing in GPUs, but also I'm at a point where I cannot justify the purchase because I think because of how fast things are changing in terms of hardware and software, I feel like my purchase would be old too quickly. But maybe you have a different opinion on this.
No, I think that that is always going to be something. Technology is moving so fast that it will always
Yeah.
feel like you're out of date. I got a 3090 a while ago, big card, and it's like a generation behind. It's a beast, and I'll probably be very, very
Hmm.
models are getting more efficient, smaller, faster, and so the capabilities by a current card now that has doing AI. Of course, you RAM because that gives you capability, early speed, but it will help. And there are
Yeah.
some new consumer cards coming out as well from CES. They've released the 40 Super. This is going to be twice the performance of the I. This is yeah, just going to be a little bit better of a card. It's not faster than the leading card that they have right now for consumers 90, but it is a
Hmm.
faster card with a much lower price point add with the phone.
Yeah, I'm
It's
curious to see how this dynamic of making differences for Chinese cards and US card is gonna end up in the long term. Yeah, we'll see about that. And then I wanted to mention this. This is unscripted in terms of news. We didn't plan to mention it, but I really wanted to mention that today OpenAI announced that there's already 3 million of custom GPTs in use in the world. So since before the launch of the new GPT store, already 3 million of custom GPTs have been made that are being used, which is I think is an interesting and important number to mention.
all right, great. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so let's wrap up here. Anyone wants to jump on and chat, more than welcome to.
Yeah,
We'll be around for a
this
little
would
bit
be
longer.
the time for us to open the mic and let people have a chat
Yeah, so
if you
join
want.
us on LinkedIn where we'll be doing these bi-weekly. And again, Ed Kennedy with Run Diffusion,
Yeah,
Alex
and with AI Garden.
with AI Garden. Awesome. This has been AI Express. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.